This week's video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to build your perfect website. Recently I received a very interesting comment from a viewer regarding one of my landscape photos. They were very complimentary about the channel, but they suggested that I'd either change the image, remove something, or clone something out of the image. And that's something I really want to touch on today. Now, they weren't angry or accusing me of something, but they raised a very interesting point. Should I have mentioned that the image had been altered? That's something I really want to dig into in this week's video because I would love to get a conversation started around this. So please do let me know your thoughts in the comments section throughout the video. Yeah, let's crack on up the trail and see what we can find today. It looks like it's going to be an incredible afternoon. So this is my first outing with the new camera bag. Let me just quickly show you how I've got it loaded out today. I've got my 0-in-1 Mark II in there and the 50, can get it out, 200 as well, alongside a bit of video kit and of course cheese and tomato sandwiches, wouldn't be without them. I've also got my teleconverter in there as well, so nice simple minimalist kit, and I'm hopeful we can get some images today. Definitely is nice to have a waist strap. It really does take the weight off the shoulders, I feel. So going back to what I was saying, these days I don't tend to alter my images that much. I won't put in a sky that was taken on a different day or a different time. I won't remove something that's fixed within the scene itself. So say if there's a gate and I don't like it, tough, it's in the photograph, it's there, it's part of the landscape. Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I didn't think twice about removing things like power lines or telegraph poles, but these days it just doesn't sit quite as well with me. And that's just a personal preference. There's no right or wrongs here. It's just the way I see things. Now, what I don't mind removing are things that I could have moved myself at the time of taking the photograph. So for example, say there's a twig or something in my foreground, I don't mind taking that out with the clone tool afterwards because I could have actually done it at the time of shooting. So it's a little rule that I guess I've made for myself. It's a silly rule, I think, but it kind of keeps me in check. So if there's a stray leaf catching the light in the foreground that really does kind of mess up my foreground and I could have taken it out at the time of shooting, I don't mind just using the clone tool to get rid of it. And yeah, it's something that I do quite a bit just to help clean up my foregrounds. Sometimes the foregrounds of your shot are really important, aren't they? And just something, you know, catching the light funny can be, yeah, a little bit awkward. So that's kind of my go-to sort of rules, if you will, about what I will and won't allow myself to do when I'm editing my images. So as mentioned, a viewer recently called me out about some dodgy cloning work that I did in one of my landscape photos, and this is the image in question. And you can see I did some pretty dodgy cloning work here. I was going to rush in to get the video edit done and I didn't spend enough time making a convincing job. If you look closely, you can see some repeating patterns, which is a real telltale sign of what I did. But the real point here is, should I have mentioned what I did? And I think this goes back to what I was saying about removing things in your image that you could have removed yourself. And we'll get on to in just a second what I actually removed, because it was basically covering up another mistake that I made. So that morning the light was absolutely fantastic, some lovely misty conditions and really soft diffused light. It was absolutely beautiful. And you know, in the summer those moments are fleeting, they only last for a very short while, don't they? So I was running around trying to get as many different compositions as I could within that small short window of shooting time that I had there. Basically I was shooting handheld, and what I did, I was carrying 2 tripods and basically I just put the 2 tripods down and kind of moved along the path and then turned around, saw this amazing scene and thought, I'm going to grab that shot. Didn't realise my tripods were still in there because I was racing around like a headless chicken basically, and that's what I removed. I removed the tripods from the image, which I was happy to do even though it was a mistake at the time. And that goes back to what I was saying, you know, I'm happy to remove things that I could have removed myself at the time. Landscape photography has always had conversations around editing. You know, some people believe a photograph should show exactly what was there. Others believe photography has always involved interpretation and creative decisions. There isn't really a simple right or wrong answer, I think. I think the real interesting question is, though, is not whether we edit, but where we draw the boundary. So I found this really nice hawthorn tree just situated on top of this dry stone wall, which I think makes quite a nice focal point. I'm just letting the stone wall draw the eye towards the tree itself, and I think it looks quite nice. The light is quite harsh, so I'm just waiting for a little bit of cloud to pass over just to help soften the shadows a little bit. Yeah, it is quite harsh at about 1 p.m. right now, so it's to be expected, but there's nothing wrong with taking a photo anyway. It's an absolutely stunning area, this really is nice. See what else we can find. Oh, by the way, I'll be really careful not to get the tripod in the shot this time. Well, it certainly is a beautiful day, and I've seen a little copse of trees just down here with this outcrop of rock just behind it, which I think might make quite a nice photograph. So I'm going to head down there to see if I can make an image. But before we do that, I'd just like to thank the sponsor of this week's video, which is Squarespace. So if you're looking to create a website for your photography, to sell prints, share your work, or even just have somewhere that people can easily find all of your photos in one place, then Squarespace makes that whole process really straightforward. One of the things I like about it is that you don't need to be a web designer to create something that looks truly professional. There's loads of really nice templates, everything is easy to customize, and it's a great option if you just want to spend more time making photographs and less time trying to figure out complicated website builders. It's also great for selling your work too, as Squarespace takes care of payments and orders for you, which keeps things really simple as well. So if you'd like to set up your very own website, head over to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch your website, go to squarespace.com/IanWorth to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Yeah, or you can use the offer code. Please do go and check out those links. It really does help support the channel as well. Okay, let's go and see if we can make a shot down here. So this area is quite interesting, and I really like this dead tree here. I think it could offer really nice foreground interest and maybe frame the landscape beyond. So I think that might be something we're going to be working on in just a second. But I just wanted to go back to what I was talking about, and you know, how far we take edits, and should we tell people about what we do, you know, so we're not kind of pulling the wool over their eyes, if you will. And I think it's a really interesting topic, and I'd love to know your thoughts on this. You know, please do let me know in the comments, where do you sit with editing? If people share their work online, do you agree that they should say everything they do to manipulate the photograph to the final end result? Or do you think, you know, some things are acceptable, like removing dust spots, removing the odd twig in the foreground? Or, you know, do you think they should disclose everything? You know, it's quite an interesting topic, isn't it? How far do you go with it, really? For me personally, I like a natural looking image. I want my scene to look like how I experienced it when I was there. And to do that, quite often I'm doing things like focus stacking or exposure blending. And yeah, it's those techniques that help me get that desired look. It helps me, you know, increase the dynamic range of my camera, for example. For those type of things, I don't feel like I need to tell people about that. Of course, in these videos, I'm always sharing my techniques, but you know, if I post an image online, I don't feel like I need to say I've exposure blended this image, because essentially all I'm doing is increasing the capabilities of my camera, really. But yeah, it's an interesting fine line, isn't it? And I'd love to know your thoughts. Where do you sit on this? Should you disclose everything, or should you just do what you like and don't worry about what other people think at all? It's an interesting topic. Yeah, do let me know. Anyway, let's see if we can get an image just down here. So, my idea here is that we've got this overhanging branch just in front of me here, and the tree on the right. There's a barbed wire fence in the foreground, and then through the gap here below this overhanging branch, we've got this outcrop of rock. And over the last sort of 15-20 minutes or so, it's been lit up really, really nicely, and the foreground has been in shadow as well. So we've got that dark to bright transition through the scene. So natural framing, dark to light, helps the eye be drawn through the image, gives it more of a three-dimensional look. That's what I'm going for, and I think it's going to be fairly easy to shoot. However, I may need to focus stack. This branch here is probably 2 meters away from me, and yeah, the hillside back there is some distance. So yeah, focus stacking is probably the order of the day. And as we're shooting handheld, I'm just going to take 2 images. So when I'm focus stacking an image, especially handheld, I like to try to get things in just 2 frames if possible. So I'm selecting an aperture that's going to get all of my foreground area in sharp focus and then all of my background in sharp focus with a second shot. So that's key for this. I think if you can do it in 2 shots, it's so much easier to blend later on. So that's something I'm always looking to do. So I'm selecting an aperture that's going to allow me to do that. With this shot here, 6.3 gets everything nice and sharp in both images. So I'm going to be taking 2 shots, one focus on the branch at the top there. That's going to get all of this area here in sharp focus, and then another one back on the outcrop of rock there in the background, and that's going to take care of that. Now the technique I'm going to use requires manual focus using back button autofocusing. I've just got my shutter release button on the front here just to take the photo, not to focus. Okay, and that's quite important as well. So basically what I'll do is I'll frame my shot up just how I want to take it, and I'll position my focus point back there on the outcrop of rock. And that means when I move, refocus, when I go back to frame up again and take an image, I'm taking an image of my foreground in sharp focus, and then I can quickly just press the AF on button, knowing that my focus point is in exactly the right place for the background image, and take another shot. And it just means you can do this in super quick succession, and there's very little movement between the images. I hope that makes sense. I have done a short on it in the past, which really goes through it in more detail. I'll leave that link down in the video description if you fancy checking it out. It's just a quick 60-second run through of what I've just discussed. But yeah, it really does make the whole process really, really easy. And then you can just blend the images together in Photoshop. Super quick and simple blend. The least amount of frames that you take, the better in my opinion, because yeah, it just helps blend in that much easier. So going back to what I was saying while I ascend this wonderful hillside, so when I first started photography, I probably focused more on creating the perfect image, but I think over time I've become more interested in the story and authenticity of a photograph. You know, the realism. Sometimes imperfections are actually part of that experience, aren't they? Sometimes as well, I think the better solution is probably changing your composition rather than trying to fix everything later on because you didn't quite get it right at the time of shooting. I know for me, especially over recent years, I find the more time I spend creating a composition, the more time I spend trying to get it right in camera, the more rewarding that photograph becomes. It almost feels like there was some form of achievement there. It doesn't feel like I rescued it later on. And for me, it's just something that's evolved over time. And I'm not saying this is necessarily right or wrong. It's just really what resonates with me as a photographer and what I've kind of grown to enjoy. So we've made it to the top, and the views from up here are absolutely stunning. 360 degrees all the way around, just really panoramic. It really does feel quite isolated up here, and it's one of the reasons I love to come up here in the summer when they're busier. Coastal areas are full of tourists. Yeah, all having a wonderful time. Now you can see the coast actually out to my right shoulder there. That's Newport Sands, and in the background there you can just see the Snowdonian Mountains, which is always nice to see on a clear day. Yeah, it really is beautiful. And I was talking to the farmer actually just on my way up here, and he was telling me about how they herd their sheep. And you might just be able to see the power station right on the horizon there in the background. Well, that sits just in front of Castle Martin firing range, and they take the sheep there during the winter. It's quite interesting. So they pack them all into a lorry and take them all down there to graze because it's warmer down there than it is up here during the winter months, and they bring them back up here for the summer. So yeah, quite an interesting fun fact for you. Anyway, I have seen a little composition on my way up, which I think I might want to explore. So I think we'll take a look at that now. So this area is absolutely lovely, and I've actually chosen to shoot this area when the sun's overhead because it actually reduces the shadows. I've been here before, and when the sun sets, it almost becomes like silhouettes in the foreground. But because this wonderful bracken here is so vibrant, I think I really want to take advantage of the top lighting because it really does accentuate the colours, which I think works really well. I've got some heather in the foreground here, which is kind of my foreground interest, and I'm just trying to balance that with the outcrops of rock in the background. And I think it's quite nice. So yeah, I'm going to make this image now and we'll talk some more. Although I haven't managed to capture any amazing photographs at all, I'm definitely not disappointed. In fact, I've really enjoyed my time out here over the last 4 or 5 hours. It's been a really nice walk, amazing views, and I think, you know, summer photography, at least for me anyway, is all about getting out there and just getting the reps in. Keep, you know, your mind engaged with composition, light, timing, even your camera settings, you know, just keeping that going really does help, especially, you know, when you get into the more sort of productive months for landscape photography. You know, you can snap straight back into it again without, you know, having had a prolonged period of kind of inactivity, if you will. So yeah, I think it's just been great to get out here today. I've really enjoyed myself. Anyway, I think we'll wrap the video up there. Please do get involved in the comments section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how far you think taking an edit is before it becomes digital art, if you will. You know, there's a fine line, isn't there, between photography and digital art. There's no rights or wrongs. It's just all about enjoying yourself and expressing your creative flair, isn't it? So yes, please do let me know in the comments section what you think about it all. I'd love to know. Anyway, take care, and hope to see you again next week.